Hello and welcome to the Glopo class. Let's get started with measurement, how to measure development. Different indexes measures either growth or development. Advantages and disadvantages can be calculated on the basis of the concept of growth and development. Keep it in mind, okay? So not necessarily that every time we are going to discuss about the advantages. It may happen that if you know whether this is for growth or for development, you can figure it out in your own way. And you can see some of them on the screen, right? Let's take them one by one. Economic growth. Economic growth is the increase in the value of an economy's goods and services, which creates more profit for businesses. As a result, stock prices rise. That gives companies capital to invest and hire more employees. As more jobs are created, incomes rise. New consumers have more money to buy additional products and services, and purchases drive higher growth. For this reason, all countries want positive economic growth, isn't it? Everyone wants that. What could be the disadvantages for this one? The failure to represent the degree of income inequality in society, the failure to indicate whether the nation's rate of growth is sustainable or not, the failure to account for the costs imposed on human health and the environment of negative arising from the production or consumption of the nation's output. These could be the disadvantages of economic growth. Human Development Index. This was introduced in 1990s by Mehboobu'l Haq and Amartya Sen. They gave this as the alternative model, right? Because economic growth was not measuring everything what was needed, not the human factor. This was based on the three factors, as you can see on the screen. The dimensions are long and healthy life, which is calculating life expectancy at birth. That is known as life expectancy index. Knowledge, which is calculating expected years of schooling and mean years of schooling. This is education index. And the third one is a decent standard of living, which is calculated on the basis of gross national income, which is known as GNI index. These three things together calculated on the basis of HDI. This is a multidimensional one. As you can see that there are three factors. What are the positive aspects? What are the good points about HDI? It goes beyond income. It gives a better insight into the people's standard of living and well-being. Popular index due to its simplicity, but it can be even the disadvantage of this also. How? But many consider that it does not dive into inequalities and disparity within a country. Adaptable as it has been improved over the years after criticism, right? Now, what are the weaknesses? Focus on very basic capabilities and exclude security, conflict, freedom, corruption, happiness, etc. Does not take under account environment and sustainability. A country's overall index conceals the disparity within the country, as its different groups within the country may have different levels of human development. There are some few common disadvantages which you can apply everywhere. So keep it in mind, not necessarily that you have to mug up all these things. You have to just remember that how you can apply some of the disadvantages of these development indexes, right? Across all the index. The component health, education and income are weighted equally but do not necessarily equally contribute to human development. So these are some of the disadvantages from my side. You can add many more disadvantages. The next is Happy Planet Index. So there are the three indicators you can see on the screen. Life satisfaction. What do you mean by life satisfaction? How satisfied the residents of each country feel with life overall. The second one is life expectancy. The average number of years a person is expected to live in each country based on data collected by the United Nations. And the third one is ecological footprint. You can tell me even what is ecological footprint, right? The average impact that each resident of a country places on the environment. Based on measures of sustainable well-being, wealthy Western countries, where do you see where would these wealthy Western countries would be? So this is the indicator which can put them down also, right? Often seen as the standard of success, do not rank highly on the Happy Planet Index. Instead, several countries in Latin America and the Asia Pacific region. One country, what you can think of, Costa Rica. You can have a look at the case study of Costa Rica on one of my videos as well. Achieving high life expectancies and well being with such smaller ecological footprints. What could be the criticism of this one? Mostly as a complementary index to understand development rather than measurement it. Okay, government can decide on the basis of this one how to allocate its funds, how to put into scientific and technological domain thing, right? So this is not considered actually as perfect measuring tool, but as a complementary index. Next one is it lacks on analyzing the abuse or violation of human right. Third one is it is very ambiguous as happiness and well-being are subjective. We cannot define them. It differs from country to country, from subject to subject also. Cultural relativism plays an important role over there. You can think of the cultural relativism, that how cultural relativism, because a country may be good at some more indexes but not good at the ecological footprint. The next we have gross national happiness. What jingles? Bhutan, right? Yes, this is the domestic growth index. It was introduced in Bhutan. It has basically four pillars: sustainable and equitable socio-economic development. All right. So all the factors which are covering under the socio-economic development, they consider this one. Spirituality is one of the factors because this is the Buddhist majority state. So they definitely consider that one, that how peace, calm a person can be. The second one is environmental conservation. This is what they consider. Third one is preservation and promotion of culture. The fourth one is good governance. Under this good governance, there are the different factors. These factors are quite similar to the OECD factors, what we would be studying later on or in few minutes. So these are the four major indicators of gross national happiness. What could be the disadvantages of this one? Because we have seen the advantage of these factors, that Bhutan has been developing a lot by employing this indicator, but due to globalization there is a setback because those people, those Bhutanese who are moving out of their country, and when they come back, where do they stand on this parameter, right? What could be the disadvantages? The problem is measuring in happiness, right? Because this is very subjective. Second, there is also the probability of disguise reporting by individuals to manipulate state policy pertaining to happiness. Manipulation. The third one is responses may be different to some questions on happiness if phrasing and placement of questions vary. Subjective kind of parameter. The fourth one is GNH may get well with the mental makeup of a long insulated tiny nations anchored in unalloyed Buddhist philosophy. But what about heterogeneous society, a big society? Think if India is considering employing the same index, who is the neighboring country. Okay, so these are some of the disadvantages. You may discuss many more disadvantages with your buddies. The last on the happiness index, happiness word from my side is World Happiness Report. This World Happiness Reports, this has six parameters. One is GDP per capita, social support, life expectancy, freedom, generosity, corruption levels. These are pretty self-explanatory. You can think of Finland has been just on the top for pretty long, 3 years, I guess. So World Happiness Report is calculated on the basis of these things, and disadvantages you can think of what we discussed about the other two happiness measurement. We move further on the corruption perception index. This index was is published annually by Transparency International since 1995, which ranks country by their perceived levels of public sector corruption. Okay, so this is calculating public sector corruption. There are the 13 different sources of data are used to calculate the sources. Some of these include World Bank, the World Economic Forum, private risk, and consulting companies, think tanks. The 13 different data sources used to calculate the standardized data values are all from different aspects of corruption in the public sector, that is bribery, diversion of public funds, effective prosecution of corruption cases, adequate legal frameworks, legal protection for whistleblowers, journalists, and investigators. However, the CPI does not measure disadvantage, does not measure activities such as tax fraud, money laundering, financial secrecy, or illicit flows of money. Okay, so this is what it has all about. There can be a good debate, good discussion in the class on the development of a nation in case if the corruption rate is high or the low. You can visit this index, you can locate your own country in your class, you can debate on this one, that what's pulling down a country's growth or development. Next, we have Gini coefficient. Gini coefficient is a statistical measure of economic inequality in a population. The, the coefficient measures the dispersion of income. The coefficient can take any value between 0 to 1. A coefficient of 0 indicates a perfectly equal distribution of income or wealth. This is a wonderful video what you can watch. There are more videos which are given on my slides. You can access this presentation on my site under development page. Last, we have OECD Better Life Index. Again, this is also hyperlinked. So majority of the time you will see that I have hyperlinked the main site of these indexes. The organization, what's the full form? The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development is a group of 38 members. Can you tell me what is which is the newest 38th member of OECD? Costa Rica. Yeah, because you have been thinking that OECD is majorly connected to European countries, but Costa Rica has joined as the newest member of this group. It discusses and develops economic and social policies. Members of the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development are typically or usually democratic countries that support free market economies, right? There might be some exception. You may think exception in the case of Costa Rica as well. What are the indicators? Okay, what it does. So it provides a platform for its member countries to compare policy experiences, seek answers to common problems, identify and share best practices, and coordinate domestic and international policies of its member nations. Its site is quite interesting. There can be whole discussion on its site. Please have a look on its site. Then what are the indicators? Self-explanatory: housing, income, jobs, community, education, environment, civic engagement, health, life satisfaction, safety, work-life balance, right? Multidimensional. Lots of indicators are given over there. So this is about OECD. The same can be applicable in terms of disadvantages, that this actually focuses on free market economy. Capitalism is predominant over there. Its membership is not that easy, and this is considered a group of the developed countries mainly, though now exceptions are also coming up, but it does not include all the countries. It includes just the like-minded people. So it becomes very easy to measure their growth, right? Okay, now the task for you. What is degrowth? You have to think about degrowth. How can you link to your topic? How can you link to the concept of development? Think of it. Now we move to the last slide of the presentation. It's about the two questions which IB has asked so far on this. The first question is, evaluate the claim that development is impossible to measure. So you can debate on the basis of growth versus development. Think many more points. What can be the points over here? The second one is, discuss the limitation of measuring development with reference to one method you have studied. You can discuss about the economic growth, which include GDP, GNP, or net national product, right? You can either pick up this one, and in general you can discuss about the disadvantages of the growth. You can even take HDI also. You can take any other happy planet index or any index what we have discussed. I hope you liked the video. Stay safe, stay tuned.